My son came home from his first deployment, and he couldn't look at me, not at anyone, but specifically not at me. 7 months. 7 months of not meeting my eyes, of leaving the room when I entered, of answering in one word when I asked him anything at all. I didn't understand. I thought I had done something. I thought he had come back different, and the different version of him didn't want me anymore. Then I found the letter in his jacket. My son's name is James. He enlisted at 19, which I did not agree with and which he did not ask my permission for, because he was 19 and legally he didn't need it. I drove him to the recruiting office myself, because the alternative was him taking the bus, and taking the bus to enlist is lonelier than it needs to be. He was deployed for the first time at 21. Afghanistan. 8 months. He came home in March of that year, and I was at the airport with a sign like an idiot. His name in big letters, James, like he might forget who he was, or like I might forget who I was looking for after 21 years. He saw the sign, and he shook his head with the specific embarrassed patience of a young man whose mother will always be exactly this much. He hugged me. He was thinner than he left, and his eyes were different in a way I clocked immediately and did not mention. The eyes of someone who has been somewhere and is not entirely back yet. I had read about this. I had prepared for this. I told myself, give him time. Don't press. Be in the room without being in the way. What I was not prepared for was the not looking. It started within the first week. Subtle at first. He would look at the table during dinner instead of at me. He would speak to the space next to my face rather than to my face. Small things easily explained away. He was tired. He was readjusting. He needed space. But it continued. Week 2, week 3. A month went by. He was living at home for the time being, filling out paperwork, figuring out next steps, and we were in the same house every day, and he would not meet my eyes. Not once. Not in passing, not at the table, not in conversation. I started testing it. I would position myself directly in his line of sight and watch him redirect his gaze to something 6 inches to my left, with a naturalness that told me he had been practicing. I asked him once, carefully, whether something had happened, whether he wanted to talk. He said he was fine and looked at the window. I asked his sister, who he was slightly more open with. She said, he won't talk to me about it either. She said, give him time. I gave him time. 2 more months went by. I found the letter on a Saturday morning in May. He had left his jacket on the kitchen chair, and I was picking it up to hang it when something fell out of the inside pocket. A folded piece of paper, handwritten, that opened when it hit the floor. I should not have read it. I read it. It was a letter he had written and not sent. Not to me. The salutation at the top said, to whoever finds this, which is either no one or my mother, in which case, hi, Mom, I'm sorry. I sat down on the kitchen floor. He wrote, I don't know how to be around her right now. She looks at me like I'm still who I was when I left, and I'm not that person anymore, and I don't know how to explain that to her without scaring her. She would want to fix it. She would want to do something. There is nothing to do. There is just waiting, and she is not good at waiting when it comes to me, and I don't have the energy to manage her worry on top of everything else. He wrote, she is going to think it's about her. It's not about her. It's about me not knowing how to be looked at, like I'm okay when I'm not sure yet if I'm okay. He wrote, I keep thinking if I just don't look at her directly, she can't see into me. And if she can't see into me, I don't have to explain what's in there yet. I know that doesn't make sense. I know she's going to notice eventually. I just need a little more time. I sat on that kitchen floor for a long time. Then I folded the letter exactly the way it had been folded, and I put it back in his jacket pocket, and I hung the jacket on the hook by the door. I did not tell him I had read it. What I did instead, I stopped trying to catch his eyes. I stopped positioning myself in his line of sight. I stopped asking if he was okay or whether he wanted to talk. I let him have the looking away as something I had given him deliberately, not something he was taking from me. I cooked dinner. I sat at the table. I talked about ordinary things, and I looked at my own plate, and I let him be whatever he needed to be in that kitchen without my worry pressing on him from across the table. 2 weeks later, he looked at me. Not dramatically. Not a moment of breakthrough with music behind it. Just dinner on a Tuesday, and I said something about the neighbor's new dog, something small and ordinary. And when I glanced up, he was looking directly at me. Not past me, not at the table. At me. And he didn't look away. I didn't say anything about it. I just kept talking about the dog. The eye contact came back slowly after that. A little more each week. The leaving the room stopped. The one-word answers became sentences, then conversations. Then one evening in June, he sat down on the couch next to me and said, "I think I'm doing better." I said, "I know." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "I can tell." He looked at me for a moment. Then he said, "I'm sorry I was like that. I know it was hard." I said, "You had nothing to be sorry for." He said, "I just didn't know how to be looked at." I said, "I know." So I stopped looking. He went quiet. Then he said, "You noticed." I said, "Of course I noticed." He said, "But you didn't say anything." I said, "Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is just be in the room without requiring anything from them." So that's what I did. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "How did you know that's what I needed?" I did not tell him about the letter. I have thought about whether I should, and I have decided not to. What he wrote in that letter was private, meant for no one, or possibly for me someday, but not yet, not while it was still raw. He gave me the information I needed without meaning to. I used it the way any good parent uses what they know about their child, quietly, in service of them, without making them perform gratitude for it. He redeployed 8 months later. He came home from the second deployment different again, still not easy, still carrying things I cannot see. But he looked at me at the airport. He found my face in the crowd before I found his, and he walked toward me already looking, and that was more than I had known to ask for. He is 24 now. He is figuring out what comes next. He comes for dinner on Sundays most weeks, and we sit at the table, and he meets my eyes. And sometimes we talk about real things, and sometimes we talk about ordinary things, and both are fine. Both are more than fine. I still have not told him about the letter. Maybe someday I will. Maybe someday he will read it himself in a jacket he forgot about, and he will realize I must have found it, and he will understand that I loved him enough to pretend I hadn't. Or maybe it will stay between me and that Saturday morning on the kitchen floor and the folding and the hanging of the jacket on the hook. That is the whole of what I know about being his mother. He doesn't need to be fixed. He needs someone in the room. I am always in the room. He has never asked me how I knew. I have thought about this. He is perceptive, more perceptive than he lets on, which is a quality he has always had and which the military apparently sharpened rather than dulled. He knows his jacket was moved. He is 24 years old and not careless, and he knows where he leaves things. I think he knows I found the letter. I think he has known since the week I stopped trying to catch his eyes, since the specific and sudden change in how I moved around him that must have told him something had shifted. But he has never asked, and I have never told. I think this is its own kind of conversation, a conversation conducted in understanding rather than words, which is the kind of conversation the two of us have always been best at. He is his father's son in the ways that are visible: the height, the jaw, the stubborn streak that comes out sideways rather than directly. But he is mine in the way he communicates what matters without saying it. I see myself in that. I have spent 47 years saying the important things in ways that have nothing to do with words. He started therapy in the fall. He told me about it in the way he tells me things he has already decided. Not asking, not explaining, just informing. He said, I started talking to someone, a VA counselor. It's good. I said, I'm glad. He said, she says I have good coping mechanisms. I said, she's right. He looked at me sideways. He said, I don't actually talk about you to her. Just so you know. You don't have to wonder. I said I wasn't wondering. He said, you were a little bit wondering. He knows me. He has always known me. What the deployment did to him is not mine to describe. I have pieces of it. Things he has told me over the past 2 years, carefully, in fragments, in the way you tell someone something difficult when you're not sure yet how much you want them to carry. I receive each fragment without pressing for more. I put them together into a picture I keep to myself, a picture that is still incomplete and may always be, because some of what he went through belongs to him and not to me. What I know is this: he came home and he could not be looked at, and he could not tell me why. And he needed me to stop looking long enough for him to find his way back to the person who could be seen again. And I did that, not because I am patient by nature, because I am honestly not, but because I found a letter that told me exactly what he needed, and I loved him enough to give it. His sister asked me once, privately, how I had managed those 7 months. She said, I kept waiting for you to confront him, or push him, or do something, because that is what you normally do. I said, I had information I wasn't supposed to have. She said, what information? I said, that it wasn't about me. She looked at me for a moment, then she said, how did you know that? I said, I just knew. She let it go. She is like her brother. She knows when I am not going to say more, and she has inherited enough of my stubbornness to recognize when pressing will not get her anywhere. My son is 24 years old, and he is figuring out who he is after 2 deployments and several years of carrying things that most people his age have never been asked to carry. He goes to therapy. He texts me on the days he doesn't call. He comes for dinner on most Sundays, and he brings things: a bottle of wine, something from the bakery near his apartment. Because that is how he shows up, through the bringing of things, the small concrete demonstrations of I thought of you. He is his father's son in the ways that are visible. He is mine in the ways that matter. Last Sunday he was helping me clear the table after dinner, and I was standing at the sink, and he came and stood beside me, and we washed dishes together the way we used to when he was young enough that I had to push a stool over for him to reach the sink. We didn't talk much. We just stood there washing dishes in the kitchen where I had sat on the floor 18 months ago and read a letter I was not supposed to read. He said, I like this. I said, washing dishes? He said, being here. Like this. Ordinary. I said, me too. He handed me a plate to dry. I dried it. Outside the window, the light was doing the thing it does in late afternoon in autumn, long and gold, and making everything look slightly more significant than it is, or maybe exactly as significant as it is. He didn't say anything else. Neither did I. We finished the dishes. He hugged me before he left, the way he hugs me now, fully, without the held-back quality of those first months. Like someone who has decided the hug is allowed, like someone who has come back, Some things you carry quietly. Some things you keep in a jacket pocket and give back without saying a word. That is the whole of what I know about loving someone.